Hello and welcome to the Village Halls podcast, sponsored by Allied Westminster, the UK's largest specialist provider of village hall insurance and the home of Village Guard. Now, insurance for village hall buildings is basically all about reassuring the local community that if something disastrous should happen, money will be there to put things back to how they were before. However, there is a significant and common issue with buildings insurance that can lead to the amount that's paid out for a claim falling way short of what you might expect. Today I'm joined by Will Molland from rebuildcostassessment.com. Will is a member of the Chartered Institute of Building and an associate member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, and is going to help us understand why, well, potentially, catastrophic mistakes are sometimes made with insurance cover and what can be done about it. Hi, Will. How are you today?
Hi, Johnny. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. Thanks, Will. Now, highly qualified in construction management and quantity surveying, I think it's probably fair to say you're a big fan of all kinds of buildings, Will, yeah?
I am indeed, Johnny, yes.
And this hopefully includes village church and community halls, right?
It does indeed, Johnny, yeah. I mean, I've been working in the built environment sector for 15 to 20 years now. Mainly in project management, some construction management, residential commercial buildings, but I kind of found myself working more with heritage buildings, getting involved in a lot of traditional materials, listed buildings, buildings in conservation areas, etc. And that naturally led into, community buildings, village halls, those kind of properties.
Yeah. And are there any halls in particular that kind of stand out for you that you've
Yeah, there's quite a few I've worked on. Yeah, I've worked on ones that have been war memorials as well. So there were quite a few halls built all over the country, actually, not just in Dorset, post First World War, and incorporated into them are war memorials. So that's an interesting building to work on. There's a lot of meaning and a lot of history behind those.
Absolutely.
Again, a lot of traditional buildings in Dorset, a lot of that vernacular style of building with flint and brick. Some of that work that was carried out in the 19th century is really quite detailed, quite intricate, and you've just got to admire the craftsmen that built it in the first place, really, particularly on a community building that they were building for their village, for their community, and the effort and the work that went into it. And then, of course, more recent builds. So there were some lottery grants handed out around about the millennium. There's some very smart new build village halls in and around Dorset. And they, of course, contrast with some of the less smart ones, which would be converted Nissen huts. I think I've come across one before that had been a chicken shed.
Right.
But it made a rather nice hall. But that's how it started life. So, all types of community buildings out there.
Fantastic. Yeah, they're very diverse, aren't they, the halls that are used for those purposes. And look, I know you're not directly involved in the running of a village hall yourself, but you've always been an active participant in community activity. So I guess you know just how important halls are, particularly in rural areas like Dorset where you're based.
Yeah, absolutely, Johnny. So I was trustee in a village, trustee of a village green for many years. That involved some work with the hall. We used to work together with the trustees of the village hall. I've been a parish councillor as well in my local parish, and that involved looking after various community assets, including bus stops, bus shelters, playgrounds, etc. An important part of rural life, really taking on the sort of management of that, being a trustee, being a guardian of that. And of course, when you go through the minutes of the meetings and you find these enormous ledgers, you realise that people have been doing this for many decades, if not hundreds of years. And now it's your time. Yeah.
Too right. And so anyway, there's this big issue within insurance that's known as underinsurance, right? And it's worth highlighting, because it's a very real and extremely common threat to community buildings. So tell me a bit about underinsurance, Will, and how big a problem it really is.
So underinsurance, Johnny, so that's a situation where if a claim is made by a policyholder, now be that an individual or a corporate body or a group of trustees, for example, for a community building, if the sum insured that they've set, so that's the amount that they believe that they've estimated that building will cost to rebuild, is too low, and this is likely to be assessed by a loss adjuster. If the loss adjuster finds that to be too low, then they're entering a situation called underinsurance, where their claim payment is going to be reduced in proportion to the amount they're actually underinsured.
Right.
And this is a very real problem, and it exists out there, all the time.
What sort of proportion of buildings?
So about 80% of all buildings are underinsured, and
really?
on average, they're only insured for 65% of what they should be. So you've got a 35% gap of underinsurance. That means that if you were to make a claim on any kind of reinstatement work on that property, you're looking at a 35% reduction in that claim. So, a £100,000 claim gets reduced to 65,000. You've got to find that £35,000 yourself. The insurer will not pay it.
Or a building that's £1 million to rebuild entirely.
Indeed.
You're going to have to find 350,000.
You are indeed. Yes,
we're talking big numbers here.
Yep.
So basically, what you're saying is it's down to the village hall owners and trustees themselves to get the amount that the building would cost to rebuild spot on when they're insuring the building, or there could be major problems if there's a claim. Yeah.
Absolutely right. It is indeed. So having been a trustee, I know what that entails, and I know that you're a volunteer, and you're usually a group of people from many different backgrounds. You're all bringing your own expertise, to that group in order to do your best to look after that community asset. But you may or may not be qualified building surveyors. However, you can always find a firm that'll do that for you. And really, it's getting that building sum insured correct from day one. That means that the policy is set up correctly. You're paying the correct amount of premium. The insurer knows where you stand. Everyone knows where they stand. And you've got the security and the knowledge of knowing that if anything did happen, you're going to get a payment out in full. And as a trustee, you've got a legal responsibility to make sure that happens. Yes, something bad could happen to that hall. It gets rebuilt. The community then get their hall back, and all those activities that are going on in that hall day in, day out, all the different groups that are meeting, the mums and toddler groups, the book groups, the whist drives. I seem to remember was something that used to go on years ago. I'm not sure they have them anymore, but the harvest festivals, the WI meetings, etc. They can all carry on in that building as they have done for many, many years.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is very real, isn't it? I can recall a pub burning down in a small village. I think it was in your neck of the woods a few years back. And the owner literally had to crowdfund hundreds of thousands of pounds when the insurance company wouldn't pay up the full cost. It was all over social media at the time. I think there was a few celebrities even got themselves involved. And that one turned out well in the end after a massive effort. But I think most don't have such a happy ending in truth. So the key is to make sure you insure your building for the right amount. But as you've said, trustees and so on, wouldn't you have to be a buildings expert to do that?
You would really, yes. And also, would you not want to go out to an independent third-party surveying firm who could carry that out for you? Completely independent of the insurance industry, the buildings owners, the trustees, etc. Carry out a completely, third-party and objective assessment.
So look, you're a professional surveyor yourself. Getting a building examined isn't cheap, is it? I mean, a large hall, you must be talking, £1,000 for someone like yourself to go out there and carry out a survey?
Yeah, we do have a way around that though, Johnny. So we offer remote assessments. So a desktop rebuild cost assessment. Right. We're carrying out thousands of these a month. We can carry these out on all types of buildings, houses, commercial property, community buildings and halls as well. And this is where we gather information remotely. So we use a wide range of online sources. We use ordnance serving mapping data. We go into planning databases, gathering that information, working out the area of the building, finding out what it's made of, what it contains, and particularly with halls, actually, there's usually a website attached to that for bookings purposes. We can see how the building's put together. We can see what the interior looks like, and we can basically carry out that survey remotely.
Fantastic. Having said that, I imagine there's a few skeptical people out there thinking, what, you can assess the rebuild value of a property without even going anywhere near the building. How reliable is that, Will?
So when we compare our desktops with our site surveys, it's roughly plus or minus 5% on the area measurements. Right. In terms of the rebuild rates that we might apply, again, we're talking, plus or minus 5, 6, 7%, that sort of area in terms of variance. I mean, really, what we're looking at here is a situation where, in this modern world, there is a lot of remote information and online data that you can gather
Absolutely.
out there. And, by having teams of assessors, teams of surveyors working together, gathering this information, we can put together a report that, for all intents and purposes, is as accurate as a site survey.
And presumably with that then comes a better price.
Absolutely, yeah, much reduced.
Yeah. So a kind of ballpark, what are we talking about?
Well, if you were to come to us directly, £160 including VAT. For that, you're getting a full, remote assessment carried out by a qualified surveyor, signed off in the office here, and sent back to you.
Yeah, better than £1,000.
Absolutely, no, vast saving.
Yeah, fantastic. And I understand rebuildcostassessment.com works in partnership with our podcast sponsors, Allied Westminster, and they've told me that with any community hall that's insured with them, they'll actually pay the cost of a desktop assessment. So in essence, that's a free professional rebuild cost assessment for anyone that's insured through Allied Westminster. So you certainly can't grumble about that, I suppose.
No, you can't. No, I mean, that's an excellent service. And as a trustee of community assets in the past, I would have quite liked to take advantage of that. Many years ago, it wasn't available, though.
And if you want to find more about that, the easiest way would be to visit villageguard.com and look for the section that's free valuation report. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Well, unless there's anything else, Will, that you'd like to add to that, I would just like to say thanks for coming on.
That's okay, Johnny. No, it's been really good to catch up.
Yeah, it's been great finding out about underinsurance. As I say, I think it's not something that everybody knows about, and I think people are often surprised by how common a problem this is, and most only, unfortunately, discover that they have a problem when it's too late. So yeah, the key takeaway here, I guess, is make sure you get an assessment before a problem arises rather than when a claim does.
Absolutely, I totally agree, Johnny. I think we deal with insurers, brokers, policyholders day in, day out, and I've yet to meet a policyholder or anyone really in the insurance business who, when coming at it from the claims side, where there's been a loss and there's a claim in and underinsurance has been found, any kind of assessment, be it desktop or site, is it would have been an easy kind of message to get through. I mean, from my point of view, really, get a desktop rebuild cost assessment carried out. If you haven't had that building looked at for a while, as a first step, get that done. If your property is listed, I would really suggest you do get that done with some urgency if you haven't had a survey done on it for a while. Listed properties are a key area for underinsurance, and you can never really underestimate the additional costs involved there, so well worth looking at.
Yeah, it's not just about being insured, it's about being insured properly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Will.
Okay, John, thank you.
That's all, folks, for this episode. Get your entries in for our wonderful Villagers photo competition, as you could win £1,000 for your village hall and £500 for yourself. You can find out more on a special page on our website. Many thanks to our headline sponsor and specialist insurance provider, Allied Westminster, for supporting our podcast, and whose services, as I've mentioned, you can discover more about at villageguard.com. And to online booking system provider Hallmaster, who also help make our podcast possible and can be found at hallmaster.co.uk. You've been listening to the Village Halls podcast, a unique listening community for Britain's village, church and community halls, and anyone interested in the vital community services they provide. We'll be back again in 2 weeks' time with another episode, so if you haven't already, please visit thevillagehallspodcast.com to subscribe, sign up for updates, link through to our social media pages, and find out more. Until the next time, goodbye for now.